Question, what can we do to heal the schism with the genuine OC, Orthodox Christians? So is it as simple as some say that if the patriarchates abandon the WCC, ecumenism, and the MP, renounce Sergianism, everything is healed? I think it's that simple. Well, that certainly would be a massive jump in the right direction. I'm not so sure it's that simple. After so many years of schism, I was talking to an elder in Mount Athos, and somebody asked him when they were talking about a prophecy of a future council that will restore orthodoxy, which includes the whole calendar problem. He said, will all the old calendars come back? And he said, no. He said, there'll be a good portion that will not. And that's because they've bought into essentially another faith with regard to the church. They've adopted another ecclesiology with regard to the church. So even when orthodoxy is totally established and ecumenism is condemned, which we pray for and hope will come about in a future council, there'll be those who will refuse to recognize that those who are in the council, having the council and condemning it as those of the local churches as the church. So there's an ecclesiology that has refused to recognize the local churches as the church, as Christ. So when you doubt the local churches that will this council that is prophesied will happen among all the local Orthodox churches, it won't happen just among the so-called genuine Orthodox Christians, right? Because that's not going to achieve anything. It has to be among the local Orthodox churches if the heresy is going to be overcome. So they have departed before a council, and so they won't be at the council. Just like the Fourth Ecumenical Council called the Patriarch of Alexandria, Dioscoros. He was a heretic. He was preaching heresy. They called him, though. They called Arius and Nestorius to these councils. So that means they were still in communion with them to a certain degree, right? They were still part of the church, at least on a formal level. Well, if let's imagine in the Fourth Ecumenical that a portion of the church had already risen up and rejected Dioscoros and had broken from the church because Dioscoros had not yet been condemned. This is kind of the situation now with the ecumenists. The old calendars have departed from the communion of all the Orthodox because of the ecumenism and because of the innovations. Well, those who had departed before the Fourth Ecumenical wouldn't have been at the Fourth Ecumenical Council. And they might have even said, well, they're in communion with Dioscoros, they're heretics too. I don't know. That's kind of where some old calendars are. They just assume that everyone who's in communion in the local churches, including with those who are ecumenists, they're all heretics. That's what a lot of what we hear from those. And we have to depart from them if we want to be Orthodox. Well, so if that's the case, they're not going to be at the Fourth Ecumenical, and they wouldn't be there to condemn along with the fathers, the heresy of Dioscoros. So I'm not sure we're going to see many of the genuine Orthodox at that council. I doubt it. I don't know if they're going to be invited or if they would come if they were invited. So then post-council, after the Orthodox has been condemned, that if once they do that, then the schism's healed. But I'm not really sure that's going to be the case. Some will come back because they're going to have to come back to the church. They're going to have to come back to the local churches, right? And the local church is going to have to accept them back. I don't know what that'll look like, but what is that going to be like? Just we're back in communion, or there'll have to be some kind of economy? What are they going to bring them back by baptism, chrismation, confession of faith? I have no idea what the church will do at that point. They've been separated for almost 100 years, so in some cases 70 years. So it's unclear to me if there's going to be enough humility and love on both parts, and they're going to actually embrace the local churches as they'll be representing Orthodoxy, the local churches. There'll be people who will confess the faith if this council happens. So if all these various heresies are condemned, is that going to bring unity with the genuine Orthodox? Maybe some. I don't think all, because they've already rejected the local churches as the church before a council, and so they won't see in the local churches the church. And so when you look at the local churches and you say modernist, humanist, heretics, well, when that local church then turns around and condemns finally the heresy, are they going to say, oh, now I see, magically you were all Orthodox actually the whole time? So I don't know what you can do, if anything, until that council happens. Healing the schism means that before a council, like right now, how could you heal the schism? I don't think we can heal anything personally on an individual basis, but there would have to be oneness of mind on how to resist heresy. That's the problem right now. How do you resist heresy? For them, you must break from the heretics. You must break from the local churches. You must cease communion with them and commemoration of them. And if you don't do that, you're not following the Holy Fathers. You're not in the church. I mean, or at least you're not. I don't know. There's various ideas there, but generally speaking, it's a major error. You're not a saint if you continue in communion with them, and you commemorate them. Saint Paisios, Porphyrios, these are not saints for most of the old calendars. So there has to be a oneness of mind. How do you resist heresy? That's the problem. There's not a oneness of mind there. They think that those who are in communion in local churches are compromised, and therefore they're not saints, they're not holy. And the saints in, like the Church of Greece, they see the old calendarists in Greece as undiscerning, falling in delusion on the right, not according to knowledge, breaking communion before a council, and not following the narrow path, the royal path rather, of resisting heresy in the church before a council. So anyway, it's a long. So we've had these discussions. I don't need to go into them again. I think you understand.